Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Dillian Whyte has been confirmed to face Oscar Rivas, the unbeaten contender, on July 20th at the O2. So this fight, I actually really like this one. It's going to be a competitive matchup, I believe, and Rivas, he definitely has a shot in this fight. So we'll get to the press release and then a few more thoughts. So you can see here on screen, here is the promo, Whyte Rivas, July 20. Interesting that it's been moved from the July 13 date, which originally had been Whyte's pay-per-view date. So this is a pay-per-view event. So the press release says, Dillian Whyte will face Oscar Rivas for the #1 heavyweight spot in the WBC at the O2 in London on Saturday, July 20, live on Sky Sports Box Office. Whyte, 25-1, 18 KOs, holds the #1 slot with the WBC and puts that on the line as the hard-hitting body snatcher continues to blast his path to a world title shot. The Brixton banger put Derek Chisora away in devastating style in his last outing, the pair thrilling the Greenwich crowd in their rematch in December before icing Del Boy in the 11th round. The 31-year-old Briton will be gunning for a 10th straight win against Rivas, with wins over Joseph Parker, Robert Helenius and Lucas Brown sandwiched between his 2 wins over Chisora. Whyte has become a must-watch fighter since rocking old foe Anthony Joshua in their battle at the O2 in December 2012. It certainly was. It was in 2015, I'm pretty sure. And yet again, takes on a high-risk challenge as he cements his spot as the leading heavyweight contender in the world. Rivas, 26-0, 18 KOs, is yet another dangerous customer for Whyte to risk his #1 ranking with, and the Colombian comes into the bout on the back of his biggest win in the paid ranks. Rivas travelled to the Turning Stone Resort Casino in Verona, New York in January and KO'd former world title challenger Bryant Jennings in the final round of their clash, underlining his dangerous potential to world titleists and fellow contenders, with Kaboom ranked at #10 with the WBC, 7 in the IBF and a lofty 5 with both the WBA and WBO. The Canadian-based 31-year-old carried an impressive amateur record into the paid ranks, beating Kubrat Pulev at the 2008 Olympic Games, a year after landing silver in the Pan American Games. And with 18 KOs in 26 fights since turning over, July 20 promises to be an explosive war between 2 in-form big punchers with huge stakes on the line. And we get to the quotes here with Dillian Whyte saying, I'm very happy to be fighting again at the O2 in July. Oscar Rivas is undefeated and ranked in the top 10 across the board of all the governing bodies. He is one of the most avoided heavyweight fighters in the last few years. His KO victory over Bryant Jennings sent shockwaves through the division, and Tyson Fury just turned down ESPN Top Rank's offer to fight him. I'm over the moon that he has accepted the fight. He has a great amateur and professional record, including a win over Kubrat Pulev. I'm more than happy to carry on fighting top 10 fighters like Rivas until I get my well-earned shot at Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua. I can't wait until July 20 to fight again at the O2, which is one of the best venues in the world for boxing. And now we're on to Oscar Rivas by the looks of it. I have waited for this opportunity for a very long time. Dillian Whyte is an excellent boxer, a world-class fighter and the #1 contender. He deserves all my respect for his accomplishments, and I'm grateful for the opportunity he is giving me. This is exactly the kind of challenge I was hoping to get. I'm undefeated. I'm planning to keep my perfect record after July 20 in my quest to get the ultimate opportunity to become world champion. This is a great fight with both men coming off explosive late-round knockouts, said promoter Eddie Hearn. Rivas is undefeated and looking to take Dillian Whyte's #1 spot, but as we know, the O2 has become a fortress for him of late, and this is set to be another war. We are planning a huge night of boxing on July 20 with a monster card topped by the brilliant heavyweight headliner. And now we're on to promoter Yvonne Michel, that is Rivas' promoter. We won't get through everything he says, but he says Oscar Rivas was willing to step up and face Anthony Joshua for June in New York, and representations were made. It might not be his turn now, but instead he is extremely happy to be earning an eventual world title opportunity by proving he is the best amongst the contenders against the outstanding Dillian Whyte. Adam Smith, no, not going to go through that. Okay, so the first question I have is, what happened with the WBC? And what I mean by that is Dillian Whyte was meant to face Dominic Breazeale for an interim title. That fell through after Breazeale went to fight Wilder after Tyson Fury pulled out of his rematch with Wilder, so leaving Dillian Whyte without a fight. And they were saying, okay, WBC, just make me the mandatory. And that was some of the representations they were making to the WBC. We have no idea what the WBC has ruled, but obviously Whyte's decision on his next fight was hinging to some extent on that ruling. And now we're just getting the announcement of Oscar Rivas. So it kind of leads me to question what happened there. But that's beside the by for the minute, because this fight has been announced. And I do like this fight. Rivas is the much smaller man here. Dillian Whyte is going to come in here with the height and reach advantages, which, if he is smart, he will use those. Bryant Jennings was able to keep Oscar Rivas at bay for large spots in their fight until Rivas just really poured it on late and just ended up knocking him out. So Rivas will be a threat even late into the fight if it goes that far, because he showed against Bryant Jennings he can carry his power and turn it up. That was a relatively even fight with Bryant Jennings, and Jennings and Whyte, if they were to fight, I think that would be a similarly even fight, but Whyte would be the favourite in that too. So I think this is quite a competitive matchup. It's maybe a 55-45 favourite for Whyte, maybe 60-40 at worst. I actually do think this is a competitive fight. I know not everyone's going to be happy. Some people will say, oh, Whyte should be facing better competition. But Oscar Rivas, 26-0, he's actually a very good fighter. They talked about his amateur record there, his pedigree, the recent win against Bryant Jennings, which really did propel him into the minds of more fight fans in general. The thing about Oscar Rivas, though, and they sort of skirted over this in the press release, didn't really mention it, tried to sort of frame him as an avoided fighter. He hasn't really been avoided, but he's had issues with his eye. He couldn't pass medical, so he had a number of fights, Amir Mansour, Gerald Washington, all that sort of fall through. So he's been fighting up in Canada because he couldn't pass an eye exam in the United States. Obviously that changed. He did manage to pass one for the Bryant Jennings fight, so that was really good for Rivas' career, that he was able to overcome those medical issues, get a credible fight, because until that point, he was 25-0 before the Jennings fight, and there were questions about, well, how good was this guy? We didn't really know how good he was in the pros. So I actually think this is a really good opportunity for Rivas, if he is going to get closer to a heavyweight title, to prove by beating a Dillian Whyte that he belongs in that sort of top echelon, because he's only got the one, real strong win on his resume at the moment, where Whyte obviously has a number that he's been stacking up in recent years. So for Rivas, it's a massive opportunity, and I like this fight, although I do think Dillian Whyte goes in the favourite. It'll be interesting to see how he approaches this. Will it be more of a rock'em sock'em sort of style as he did with Derek Chisora in that first fight, or will it be more sort of moving around the ring, a little bit of back foot game, trading in spots as he did in the second fight? And because Rivas is no doubt going to be tracking forward and looking to land bombs, I think it's going to be more of the second Derek Chisora performance. But it's got to be said, Dillian Whyte didn't necessarily look that polished in that fight. He didn't exactly impress in that fight, and some of the sort of the style clash for that second Chisora fight, it's kind of been forgotten that until he got that brutal knockout in the 11th round, that he was looking a little bit average in terms of the boxing performance. And Rivas is a decent boxer himself. He will probably fancy himself to be able to box with Whyte if it does end up devolving into a boxing contest. So I think in spots it could be a bit dirty, a bit brutal, but also we could also get a lot of just classical sort of boxing action as well. It really depends what's happening in the fight at the time, but the later it goes, if it does in fact go late, both guys will be still looking to land those heavy shots, and especially if it goes to the 12th round, I think, someone like Rivas and Whyte, they will be really looking to unload. Who knows what will happen in this fight? My first sort of inkling is that I would favour Dillian Whyte to win this fight, but I think Rivas is in with a great shot, and I believe it is a very competitive matchup. Some may say, is this a pay-per-view fight? I think it's sort of right on the border there, because Dillian Whyte, he's still establishing himself as a pay-per-view star. I guess the problem is Rivas really doesn't have a huge profile among fans in general, so you could sort of say from that point of view, it's an interesting choice for an opponent, because they're really going to have to try and big him up to sell him to the casual fan, because right now, Dillian Whyte is the one who's going to be pulling people in, because people don't really know Rivas, because he's been campaigning up in Canada because of the eye issues, largely in obscurity. Anyway, what do you make of it all? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.